The sound of sparrows is one that you'd usually associate maybe with a quaint English village or even a quiet suburban estate. It's not usually the sound you'd expect to hear in a place like this, which is in the heart of the Northern Quarter, just between Tib Street and Manchester Craft Centre. In this spot, these house sparrows have been isolated. They've been thriving thanks to the cracks and crevices in old buildings, such as in the Craft Centre, for their nesting sites. They wouldn't be able to survive if these places weren't available to them. But here, in this small little spot, they're thriving. These little residential gardens and balconies mark the very boundary of this important habitat. You don't have to walk very far before these sounds soon disappear, and we see sights like this. And could this really be the closest we get to seeing nature in our streets? I'm Teddy Jones. After growing up in Wigan, I now call Manchester my home. I've always been fascinated by nature, maybe due to its elusiveness in the urban places I've lived, but what I've found are places where nature is clinging on. In Wigan, the canal was my respite. 5 minutes in any direction from Wigan Pier and I would find pockets of wildlife. The same is true in Manchester. Originally meant for industrial use, the canals are now some of the most important areas to find a bit of nature within the city. They become almost a portal to a different world. When I first moved to my current home, I went in search for my most local green space. However, I was soon to find a building site, and so this place became my haven. This is one of the few places in the city I've been able to photograph starlings, for example, and there's always a wren hopping around and making quite a racket. In a small area where things again have been able to degrade, the starlings, much like the sparrows, rely on eaves, holes, crevices to nest in. And so places like this are so important as a last resort, a last haven, a last place of sanctuary. But it doesn't have to be this way. And this is my own little spot of green space that I've made for myself and for the wildlife of Ancoats, I suppose. But this has become so important, not just for me. Obviously, it's great to come out and be able to pick a fresh bay leaf to put in your curry, or to grab a couple of chives or herbs to put on your scrambled eggs, or to wait for the Scotch bonnet to come and just to see how much spice you can handle. You know, our serotonin levels rise when we acknowledge life, when we see greenery. And so to have this in the place where you live is so important. Mental health is a topic which is spoken about frequently these days, and it's not surprising when we see a decline in these green spaces and we see a decline in things that physically make us happier. When you come out of your balcony, like myself, and you see pretty much the same view every day, bar the odd bit of new growth in terms of new buildings. But to be able to come out and watch a plant develop, to watch the blossom of this cherry tree come out bit by bit, day by day, those sounds and those feelings that, you know, we associate with living in a affluent area, is when there's trees and when there's songbirds or sparrows. You hear the house sparrows in the hedges. Bats are another example of a species that can be encouraged. So nice to come out this time of year now and see the bats start to circle around the buildings. When you're on a balcony, it's great because you're on the same level as these bats that are flying around, and so they'll fly right down low and you can even hear them chirping at each other. And it's a great thing to be able to sit in your own home and see that happening, or in the daytime to see a flash of gold and red go past the window of the goldfinches that fly around here. So there's life, the life is there, but what we can do is encourage it to stay a little bit more. We can then look on the other side of my building and we see this sort of roof covered in moss. That moss and the lichen that will be growing on there will be supporting a variety of invertebrates. Pigeons, of course. Feral pigeons will make use of any space, as we've seen, and not to be confused with the wood pigeon. Here we see one of those, bigger than the feral pigeon, plodding along quite happily there. A carrion crow, a scavenger, and
and a rather intelligent corvid, and another very intelligent corvid, the magpie. Now, we hear that magpies like shiny things, but have a look at this. A magpie which seems to be ripping up the security measures that have been put on this rooftop to then build a nest out of them. I found this in the tree just nearby, because obviously if there is no decaying tree matter, any twigs or bits of debris that magpies can use and wildlife can use, it's going to start using what is available. Here we see a Harris hawk that is used and released to control these overpopulations of pigeons.
We shouldn't need to introduce these non-native species such as the Harris hawk to control our other native species. What we can do is create an environment where that food chain is re-established, and so we'll have less issues with overpopulations of pigeons. Pigeons, when they eat seeds and then go elsewhere, they spread the seeds. But we need places for the seeds to grow. As we've seen in brickwork, in mortar, in tiles that are on the side of buildings, life is really, really trying to push through. And so maybe we should step back, let it, and also encourage it. And I think we'll start to see a change in physical and mental health very soon, if this does happen on a bigger scale.
So the time is now to do us all a favour. Get outside and crack on. And soon we could see a city that's absolutely full of life.